Today we're talking about fears, and I wanted to ask, Annika, is there anything that you're afraid of?
Monsters in the dark.
Monsters in the dark, okay. I think that there are a lot of people who are afraid of the dark. Do you think that's true? Um, yeah. I wonder why. I mean, I think that sometimes can be afraid of the dark because, well, probably for like a lot of reasons, but I think that when we can't see what's out there, our minds just start to imagine some really scary things, and our imaginations are also quite powerful, so we can think up some pretty crazy stuff that can be really scary sometimes. And but one thing that's kind of neat is as soon as we turn on that light, those scary images disappear once we can use our eyes to see again. I'm going to read a book about a super cool scientist who was once afraid of the dark. And this is a book about Chris Hadfield. So Chris Hadfield is a guy who really loves science, and he wanted to explore not only everything on Earth, but he also wanted to see what was out there beyond Earth. So he became an astronaut and one day actually went into outer space. But when he came back from that trip, he remembered a time when he was so afraid of the dark and how much he had to learn so that he could face that fear, so he could keep dreaming about being an astronaut. Because if you're going to go into outer space where astronauts go, then you have to get used to the dark. And so he wrote a book to talk about his experience of being afraid of the dark. So Annika, you can go sit down right there, and I'm going to read this book. This is called The Darkest Dark by Chris Hadfield. Chris was an astronaut, an important and very busy astronaut. When it was time to take a bath, he told his mother, "I'd love to, but I'm saving the planet from aliens." When it was time to get out of the bath and go to bed, he told his father, politely, because astronauts are always very polite, "Sorry, no can do, I'm on my way to Mars." An astronaut's work is never done, so astronauts do not like to sleep. But their parents do. "You're a big boy now," said Chris's father. "You have to sleep in your own bed." And Chris tried. He really did. But his room was dark. Very, very dark. The kind of dark that attracts the worst sort of aliens. But his parents meant it. Chris was going to sleep in his own bed tonight. His mom and dad checked under his bed and in the closet and even in his underwear drawer. They declared that the room was 100% alien free. They tucked Chris in. They turned on the nightlight. They even gave him a special bell to ring if he was nervous. Clang, 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 clang. They took the bell away. And then his father said something that worried Chris even more than the dark did. "One more peep, young man, and I'm afraid that we'll all be too tired to go next door tomorrow." But tomorrow would be a special day, a very special day. Chris had to go next door. His life pretty much depended on it. So Chris stayed in his own bed without a peep. It took a long time to fall asleep, but when he did, he had his favorite dream. He flew his spaceship all the way to the moon. The next day seemed to last forever, but finally, when the moon was shining and when the moon was shining over the lake and the summer wind was ruffling the leaves of the trees, Chris ran next door.
Was his parents?
Yeah. The house was already full of people, all gathered around the TV, the only TV on the whole island. Chris found a spot where he could see through the crowd, and what he saw was astronauts. Real, live astronauts on the actual faraway moon. And they were wearing puffy white suits and jumping for joy, jumping so high because there was so much less gravity out there. The grown-ups huddled around the TV were amazed. Their whole lives long. They never expected to see this sight. Even Chris, who had been to the moon just the night before, was amazed. He'd never really noticed how dark it was there. Outer space was the darkest dark ever. That night, Chris did a little experiment. He turned off all the lights in his room, even the nightlight. It was still dark, very, very dark. There were still shadows that looked a little, well, alien. Nothing had changed. But Chris had changed. He had seen the darkness of the universe was so much bigger and deeper than the darkness in his room. But he was not afraid. He wanted to explore every corner of the night sky. For the first time, Chris could see the power and mystery and velvety black beauty of the dark. And he realized, you're never really alone there. Your dreams are always with you, just waiting. Big dreams about the kind of person you want to be. Dreams that can actually come true. And that's the end of that story. So, this book isn't your typical church book. It doesn't even talk about Jesus specifically. And it seems to be talking about astronauts overcoming their fears so they can follow their dreams. Chris's fears about the dark were real. The thing is, it is a good thing for people to be afraid sometimes. Because when we are feeling fear, our bodies are telling us that we need to be paying attention because there might be something dangerous that might happen. So fear is a good thing sometimes. But it doesn't mean that we have to let it control us. If Chris let his fear of the dark control him, he wouldn't have done some really amazing things. Instead, he paid attention to his fear and focused really hard to make sure he was prepared and learned everything that he needed to learn before he was ready to go into the dark of outer space. He believed in his dream to be able to one day explore way more than most people ever get to. So I think that this book is definitely a church book. Church tells us that God created this world for us to live and to explore and learn. The book helps us see that we have a whole world out there that we're meant to explore and learn so that we can better understand ourselves and our place here. It can be scary sometimes to try new things or to be in a place where we don't know what will happen. But if we pay attention, learn as much as we can, and trust things we start to understand, then we might surprise ourselves with what we're able to do. The Bible story talks about Peter being afraid to walk on the water, and Jesus told him not to be afraid and to trust him. I can tell you that if I was told to get out of the boat and walk on the water, I'd be like, are you nuts? But Peter was already watching somebody who was already walking on the water, who was already doing it. He had already seen Jesus perform so many miracles and had a reason to believe that he could trust him with this instruction. And because he had a trusting relationship already with him, he should have been able to trust that Jesus was not going to lead him somewhere that would hurt him. So my hope for Annika and for all the kids listening is that when you're feeling afraid or to do something, or that something is happening that makes you feel fear, that you'll ask yourselves, where does that fear, that feeling of being afraid come from? Think about what do you know about that situation and who you can trust to help you. Is the fear telling you that something's wrong and maybe you need help? And when you're ready, that you're going to be able to take steps to do the things that make you so that you're not going to be afraid anymore. So yeah, thank you for listening. I hope you have a good day.